Welcome to the Homebuyer webinar. If you're here, that probably means you're either already searching or you're just getting ready to start searching for your next home. Congratulations, I know this is an exciting time. I also know it can be a stressful and confusing experience. My goal with this webinar is to walk you through the entire process from start to finish so you can set yourself up for success and establish your expectations. So let's get started. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Alicia Schaefer, and I'm a realtor with Iron Valley Real Estate, serving the Susquehanna Valley. I am a native of the area and know the local towns like the back of my hand. Our little family loves the area because we love all things outdoors. Hiking, kayaking, horseback riding, you name it. I also love reading and coffee, and our area is rich with great little coffee shops too. I have an MBA and my background is in marketing in the corporate world. I always had an interest in real estate, but it took me about 10 years to finally take the leap and get my license. I love it so much and only wish that I would have done it just right out of high school. I am passionate about helping people buy and sell with peace of mind, knowing that someone has their back. Step 1 is to choose your real estate agent. You'll be spending a lot of time together, so I suggest choosing one that you really connect with and that you can trust. It's important to do this early in the process because your agent is going to get you set up for success. You'll save time, stress, and maybe even money. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, a VA buyer, or even someone looking to move up into their forever home, you'll want to find an agent that aligns with your goals and what's important to you. And of course, I'm going to put a shameless plug in here for myself because I really don't believe that all agents are the same or that you're going to get the same experience if you just choose the first agent you find. Now, there's a whole laundry list of reasons I could name about why you should choose to work with me or even Iron Valley in general, but the bottom line is this: I plan to be in business for a long time. I want you to have an experience so great that you'll be telling your family and friends about it for years to come. So I'm always going to go to bat for you and strive to go above and beyond to meet your expectations or even exceed them. Step 2 is pre-approval. This is a big one and one that I get a lot of resistance to. Many buyers use online mortgage calculators or similar tools, so they think they know what they can afford, and they often argue about getting that pre-approval before we tour homes. But hear me out, there are 3 major reasons to get that official pre-approval. First is that we'll be ready to act fast when the right home comes on the market. Nothing is more frustrating than missing out on a home because you're not prepared to write an offer. Second is knowing your buying power. I have shown buyers homes that they fell in love with, only to find out that their approved amount was less than they thought. And then they had to start the process all over from scratch with finding out their approved amount. The third reason is that many sellers are requiring pre-approval or proof of funds before any buyer is allowed access to tour the home. So it's best to just get this taken care of right away so it doesn't hang us up when you're ready to move on a home. To dive a little deeper on this topic, I have invited Brent Stahl with Fidelis Mortgage to answer some of the most common questions that I get about pre-approval and the mortgage process in general. So we're going to head over there.
So the first step in the process, what I always want to be the first step of the process, is that buyers go and get a pre-approval. So here to talk about that a little bit today and lending in general is Brent Stahl from Fidelis Mortgage. Hi, Brent. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with your clients.
Awesome. So let's get right into the questions. First up is, what is a pre-approval and why is it so important to get one before looking at homes?
So to start with, what is a pre-approval? That's where you're gonna talk with a lender and have them. They're going to take an application on you. So I typically like to do this over the phone. Take about 15 minutes over a phone call. You can also do it online where you fill out an app if that's how your customer would want to do it. But I prefer to do it over the phone so I can just make sure the questions that I need asked are gone through thoroughly. But so I'll ask some questions. we get some basic information to pull your credit. We're going to look at your work history for the last 2 years, your living history for the past 2 years, and then some asset information, what you have saved up in the bank, and then any other assets that you might have. And then there's a couple other questions to go with it. So it's a simple process there. Then I create a file, pull your credit, and we have to get an approval through an automated system first. Now, it'd be based on a particular price and the information that I got from that customer when I took the application. Once we get it, we get a pre-approval through the computer program, which each particular program has its own system we run it through. Then I would collect some income documents and make sure that everything matches up to what we talked about when I took the application. If that all looks good, I issue a pre-approval letter, and that allows you to put an offer in on a house. And then the other part to your question, what was that? Why is it so important, I believe?
Yeah.
So I'll go over two parts to this. So first, it lets the seller know that you're a serious buyer, that you've talked to a lender, and that you've gone through that process. And you come to their home to take a look at it, that you're actually qualified to buy that home. I've also, over the years, talked to different buyers that would go out looking at homes for sometimes weeks before they would speak to a lender, and then come talk to me, and for one reason or another, they couldn't be approved at all, or they couldn't be approved to buy the price range that they were out looking at. And then the second part to why that's important is, you go over realistically what you can afford. So we pre-approve you based on certain numbers, your gross income, so before taxes are taken out, and then the bills that report to credit. Many times what I can pre-approve a client for is one number compared to what they actually want to pay based on like what they feel comfortable with for a monthly payment. So it's good to go over those numbers and see what you can be pre-approved for, but then also maybe what price you want to look at. And then we can go over the cost, what it would cost you out of pocket as well. And it also, it's crucial in this market to be ready to make an offer. That's the most important part of the pre-approval, is that you have to have it to make an offer. So it saves you time. If you find a home that you're interested in, you want to be able to move on it quickly, especially in this market. Every minute counts.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so what is your best advice for home buyers who are just starting to look?
Well, just starting to look, first, in simple, get pre-approved if you're ready to start. But I would go back before that a little bit, and I would say it's something that I call assessing your readiness to buy. So you're just going to look at a few aspects of your situation in your life, and you want to have these things in order. So first will be financial stability. Lenders look for financial stability in a buyer. And we're looking at the last 2 years, and you don't want to be jumping through, jumping from job to job to where you haven't been at each job for very long. Have like 5 or 6 jobs in the past 2 years, that doesn't look as good. Not to say it can't work, but that's something that they're looking for, is stable work, stable hours. And after that, I would say you would want to do a credit worthiness check. So you want to tie up any loose ends on your credit. Make sure you're not going late anytime close that you want to buy. You can get rid of collections that you have. You want to have the best chance that you can going forward. When you do purchase, you're going to lock in a rate, and typically that's going to be for 30 years. So you want to put your credit in the best position that it can be in. The higher the credit, the better. I would say at a minimum, you want to shoot to have a 620. That is on the low end of where I would say you would want to shoot for. It's not that we can't work with scores below that, but it limits your options. And then aside from that, you want to save for a down payment. Whether, we might be able to get you in with little to no money down. You still want to have some money when you're going into buy a house saved up, whether it's for some closing costs that you might have to cover. There's some other fees, appraisals, inspections, but aside from those, you also want to have an emergency fund. You don't want to buy a home and then have no funds left, so that when anything pops up, that may go wrong with the home or anything you need to repair, you always want to have some emergency funds set aside to take care of any issue that may arise. Then after that, I would say consult with a professional and then get that pre-approval done.
Yes, I agree. So, I think a lot of people think that if they're going to get a mortgage, they have to have 20% down, and that is a common misconception. So can you talk a little bit about programs that are outside of that normal conventional 20% down that could be
Yeah,
available?
absolutely. So yeah, that's more something when we get told from older generations, you have to have 20% down. But I mean, let's face it, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money even with smaller percentages down and closing costs. But 20% is really tough for our first time buyers. So we have different programs that are, some are for first time buyers, some you don't need to be a first time buyer, but a first time buyer would be classified as anyone that has not owned in the past 3 years. So conventional, keeping it within conventional, first we have 3% down. So 3% of the price is a first time buyer program. And then we also have an offshoot of that to where there's a 1% down program to where you can get a credit for the other 2%. That credit maxes out at $4,000. So once you go above 200,000, you would be bringing the difference from what that credit doesn't cover. Aside from that, we have some other options as well. Then we have some government programs to where there's there's three no money down programs now. So that I have, there's USDA financing, which is a rural housing program that the house has to be in an area that is considered rural. That's a no money down product. If you're a veteran, that's no money down. And then we have another government loan program. It's a 100% FHA program. Typically, that program requires 3.5% down payment, but I have a new product where you can get it gives you a loan for the down payment. So it's a second lien. And then aside from that, we have regular FHA, which is 3.5% down on the price. Some of these programs have income restrictions and based on different members of the household, things like that. But that's something I could go over the options with the buyer.
Yeah, I think it's good to know. A lot of people don't know there's so many options available, even under the first time home buyer umbrella. So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that. And then I don't know if you have an example of a time, or you just want to talk a little bit about how you can get creative to maybe help buyers that think that they can't buy a house. I know there's a lot of buyers that for one reason or the other are renting. They pay their rent on time, but they don't necessarily have money saved up for a down payment. So can you just talk a little bit about different ways to get creative?
Yeah, I mean, so if they don't have money saved up, we would first look into qualifying for, the no money down products. And then there's always closing costs, and some of those products will allow us to get all the closing costs covered, but that's a negotiation with the seller. It is tough to get in this current market in recent years. I'm seeing a little more of it lately. It's, case by case, and you ask for that when you make your offer. So it doesn't hurt to try. You can also get gift funds from family members. So you can get that if you have the option to do so. So I mean that's one way we can go with little money. And there are some grants out there and they go by county, and you have to look into what that particular county provides and what there is available there. And then aside from no money down, just some creative things, we have some products to where if you can't qualify on banks, on your credit, not credit, your tax returns, we can do bank statement programs to where we just look at a year of bank statements, maybe 2 years. We have some low credit products where we can go down to a 500 score, but you need a little bit more money out of pocket. And then for people that maybe they don't think they can qualify on their credit, it's always better to talk to a lender, see where you stand, what actually the standards are, and what you need to do. Some people just need a little bit of coaching, and I've had many instances where I've helped people out, whether it's through just taking some time, telling them what things maybe to pay off or what accounts to open, bring their score up to where it needs to be. And also, we can move that process along with other tools. I have a credit analyzer that we can go through, things like that. And then, the down payment thing is a lot of people are just misinformed and they think they need a lot more money out of pocket than they do.
And then, so you mentioned, one of the things you mentioned was grants for different counties. So that leads me into my next question. And I just want to make the point here that when you're working with a local lender, they're much more likely to be able to find those local specific programs available for certain areas over the big box mortgage
Yeah.
companies. But what else sets Fidelis apart from those big box mortgage companies that you see ads for all the time?
Yeah. So the big box companies, they have a reputation in the business. Sometimes the seller isn't even, they're going to take their offer a little less serious. So like Fidelis, we're a local lender in the area. They know that they're going to get that deal to closing. You can trust them. The big box companies, a lot of time that's somebody that's online, could be in another state across the country. I've seen many times to where I've had agents come to me with a customer that was at a big box lender. That lender maybe approved them and they shouldn't have been, or there might have been a mistake made, but that when they make that mistake, a lot of times they just disappear and that phone stops getting answered because they're like, whatever, I'm out here in California or wherever it may be. And if I mess this deal up over in Pennsylvania, doesn't hurt my business overall. We live off referrals and we've got to do a great job. And second part to that, I would say is I would equate us more to like an analogy of them being a cruise ship, and we're more of a speedboat. So we're a small company. We're family owned. We have a couple branches here in Pennsylvania, and you know, we're a tight-knit group. We've all been in the business for a long time. We've got a lot of experience. I've been doing it for 15 years myself. My processor's been in it longer than that. I think she's been 20 years, and we've been working together for a long time. Also, with not being a big box, we're smaller. We've set ourselves up in a way to where we don't have the same overhead. We don't have the advertising costs they do, that we don't have all of the hands in the pot that need to be paid out of that particular deal. We're able to we don't have to make near as much off the client. We don't have to jack up their fees and their rates. We're able to give them a lot more of a competitive deal compared to a lot of the big box lenders, because we can skinny that stuff down because of those things. I also have many options as far as programs compared to some of them. If you go to a lender, they have their specific programs. The way we're set up is I have different investors that I look at, maybe 6 or so different ones that I look at mainly, that we transfer our loan to after we close it from our company, and then they service it. But it allows us to have a lot of different programs, a lot of different guidelines, also many different sets of rates for each of those programs. So I look for the best deal for that customer based on any given day and that particular scenario.
Love that. Well, thank you. I think this will be very helpful for my clients that are just starting the process. And I hope this has convinced them to work with Fidelis, work with a local lender when they're getting that pre-approval. But thank you for your
Absolutely.
time, Brent.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Step 3, we start the home search. This is an exciting time and one part of the process that buyers often enjoy. At the beginning of this process, I like to meet with you in person to discuss your goals, timelines, non-negotiable features, as well as those dream features. Once we have established some good search parameters, we will schedule some showings to start touring available homes that match your criteria. I am willing to show you as many homes as it takes to find the one, but with my process that hones in on what you truly want from your next home, it's not uncommon to find it in 3 showings or less. Once you've found the right home, it's time to make an offer. A common misconception is that this is simply telling a seller what you're willing to pay. But the standard Pennsylvania Agreement of Sale is 14 pages long, and there are many ways to make your offer more appealing to sellers without adding more to the offer price. For example, you might offer more earnest money deposit than the recommended 1% of the purchase price. Earnest money is a show of good faith to the seller and gives them peace of mind that you're serious about the home and that you're committed to making it to the closing table. And earnest money is just one way to make your offer stand out to the seller. I like to meet with you in person to go through each page of the agreement of sale so you understand what you're signing and what your expectations should be throughout the process. There may be some negotiations with the seller after you submit your offer. They may make a counter offer, or maybe they want to take that refrigerator we asked for with them when they go. Once we work through any negotiations and both parties have signed and agreed to your offer, congratulations, you're under contract. The next steps will be for your agent to notify your lender so that they can start the official mortgage process. And then we'll choose a title company and send them the required documents and choose an inspector and set up those inspections. Inspections are a very important tool to protect yourself when you're buying a home. We always hope that everything on the seller's disclosure is accurate, but unfortunately, sellers are often not licensed contractors and they simply cannot know everything about the condition of their home. Getting an inspection will help you avoid costly repairs and help you make a well-informed decision. While some buyers might want to waive inspections to make their offer more appealing to the seller in a multiple offer situation, I'm never going to recommend it. After inspections, we do have a 5-day negotiation period if any deal breakers come up. In this time, we could ask for a repair to be done before closing, for a reduction in the purchase price, for a seller credit to be paid at closing that will cover the repair once you take ownership, or you could even ask for a home warranty to cover any aging systems. But we do have that 5-day negotiation period after inspections. Because inspections are such an important part of the home buying process, I've invited Walt from Rock House Inspections to answer the most frequently asked questions and talk about home inspections with us.
Welcome, Walt from Rock House Inspections. I'm excited to talk about inspections as part of the home buying process today. I've worked with Walt for a while now. He does great work. Walt, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Rock House and your capabilities before we get started.
Thank you, Alicia. Happy to be here today. I love Rock House Inspections. It's a company I started about 3 years ago. Since then, I've done about 600 home inspections and then a bunch of ancillary inspections as well. My background is in the construction world, both residential and commercial, as well as nonprofit work that I've done over the years. So starting a home inspection business is like the perfect fit for me. I love working with people and I love helping them get the information they need to make a really good decision about a very big.
Yes, I think that shows in the work you do.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about inspections. I have a lot of people that come through, a lot of first-time home buyers usually, that have some misconceptions when it comes to what an inspection is and why it's important. But can you just give us your best description of what an inspection actually is?
Sure. So there's a couple things about home inspection it's important to know. First, know that it's a non-invasive visual inspection. Okay. So I'm not tearing apart walls and it's non-invasive in that sense. And it's a visual examination of the structure, the systems, and the components of a home. So simply put, just about anything that can be seen will be inspected in a home inspection. And that's from the top of the roof down to the bottom of the foundation, everything in between. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC, appliances, structure, foundation, all the systems, all the components of a home. So it's a very thorough inspection. Usually takes right around 2 to 3 hours for me to do a full inspection.
And why is it important for somebody that's considering buying a house?
Yeah. So home inspections are really designed to protect the buyer by revealing any problems that might not have been noticed otherwise. This way I kind of look at it. Buying a home is like, it can be a great asset or a potential liability depending on the condition of the home. It's similar to buying a car. I wouldn't buy a used car without test driving or even having my mechanic look it over. Nobody wants to drop a ton of money into a car they just bought. And buying a home is really no different. So getting a home inspection gives the buyer the information, the peace of mind they need to move forward with the Many of my clients, Alicia, they've actually been able to negotiate hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in repairs prior to closing, or maybe even a drop in the price. And all of that is because of maybe the defects I discovered during the inspection. I will tell you though, that most of my clients, they want a really clean report. They want a really good inspection. They don't want any defects. And sometimes we find houses that there's really nothing to be concerned about. But there's always houses that have, maintenance items and things that should be repaired prior to closing.
Right.
And it really just depends on, the age of the home, how the previous owners kept it up. And
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So what are some options for inspections, and how would you recommend that buyers choose when they're electing inspection time of writing an offer?
Yeah, good question. So, of course, home inspections, they're the big one. Everybody needs a home inspection. But I do offer many other services depending on what the needs of the buyer may be. And a lot of that has to do with the house that they're buying. So I do offer pest inspections, radon testing, water testing, mold testing, lead-based paint testing. I also do septic inspections, commercial inspections. So I do a lot of different inspections in addition to a home inspection. I try to be kind of the one-stop shop, if you will. Make one phone call, Walt can take care of it. So depending on the home you're buying, you may want to get an additional service or inspection done in addition to a home inspection. One of the things that's really big in the state of Pennsylvania is radon testing. So radon, people ask me, well, what is radon? Well, it's an invisible, odorless gas. It's a radioactive gas, actually, that's released from the rocks, the soil, and the water underneath our homes. And radon's actually the leading cause of lung cancer next to smoking. So it's a big concern. And what's interesting is a little bit of factual information here. 1 in every 3 homes in the state of Pennsylvania actually test high for radon. And that's why the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the EPA, they recommend that all homes have a radon test done prior to the purchase of a home. So if I do a radon test on the home, that radon test will confirm if the home is safe or if the home is in need of radon mitigation prior to closing. So radon is one of those things I offer. A lot of people like to have that done. Water testing. If you are buying a property that has a private well, you should make sure that your drinking water is safe and free from bacteria. There are over 1 million private wells in the state of Pennsylvania, and half of the wells that have been tested have a water quality problem. So make sure your drinking water is safe. Get it tested if you have a private well. I also offer septic inspections. So if, let's say you're out in the country and you don't have public sewer, then you're going to have an on-site septic system. And it's really important to have that septic system inspected. It's the most expensive system to repair or to replace.
I know that.
Today, you had to install a septic. Yeah, right. Today, the cost of installing a sand mound septic system is about $30,000 right now. So I do what's called PSMA septic inspections, and that will confirm if the system is operating properly or if it's in need of repairs or replacement prior to closing. I also offer lead-based paint testing too. So one quick note on that, if you're buying a home that's built before 1978, it probably has lead-based paint. And if you have small children under the age of 6, it would be a good idea to verify that you do have lead-based paint and that it's, in good condition and it's not going to present any potential lead poisoning to small children.
Right. And the reason for that is because they're more likely to eat the walls, correct?
That's why they say children are the age of 6.
Yes.
They like to put things in their mouth.
Right. I have 2 of those. I understand.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And I just want to add my own quick personal snippet here. When we bought our house, had I not gotten a septic inspection, we would have been on the hook for our system that we had to put in here was around $45,000, and that was 10 years ago. And it's not the inspection didn't find it, but because we had done the due diligence and taken that step, we were able to have some recourse when the septic was not good.
Yeah.
So it's a protection for buyers.
Yeah, it's designed to protect the client.
Yep.
The buyer for sure.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so they've gotten through inspections and they got the report in their email. How can we interpret that? Like we already mentioned, there's not really a house I haven't, in my personal experience, maybe you have, that hasn't had at least one item on the inspection report that was not necessarily a concern, just something to note. So how can buyers prioritize and kind of work through that inspection report when they get it?
Yeah, very good question. I think it's first important to understand that the inspection report, it's really a tool that gives the buyer the information they need to move forward with the purchase. Gives them the information they need to negotiate repairs or drop the price if possible prior to closing. So let's talk about the defects that you find in a report. I like to tell people that not all defects are the same. Okay. Let's say there's 20 defects in the report. You might be like, oh my God, this house is, there's 20 defects. Well, not all defects are the same. Every house has defects. So what I do is I break down my defects into 3 different simple categories, from least concerning to most concerning. So least concerning are called maintenance items. Every house has maintenance items, like clean out the gutters. There's debris in the gutters. Okay. Then there are repair items, which might be you have a leaking plumbing pipe. Okay. Then there are hazard items. Okay. And that could be something that would significantly impact the value of the property or, the safety or your health in that property. So maintenance items, repair items, and hazard items. And my report breaks those things down. A hazard item sounds very, very serious, which, it could be serious, but not expensive. So it could be a very simple $15 fix, smoke detectors in the bedrooms, or you've got a vent that's not properly sealed as it enters the chimney flue. Those are hazard items, but they're very easy to fix and they're very inexpensive to fix. So that's kind of how my report works. When you get my report, it's very visual, easy to read. I send it out the same day as the inspection. You'll have a photo of the defect, a description of the defect, and then a recommendation of what to do about it. So I break it down for you so it's not so overwhelming.
Yes, and I like the way that you structure your reports. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
So we've already talked about this a little bit, but I'm just curious, have you ever had an inspection where you did not have at least one finding?
No. And I've done some new inspection homes too, new construction homes, that is. And I did find one defect in that home, and the front door deadbolt wasn't working properly. Okay. But every home has defects. I've never found one without.
Yeah, the one new construction that I worked with was probably getting close to 3 years ago. It actually had more findings because they weren't quite done yet.
Yeah.
And we did the inspection. So yeah. So what's your best advice for home buyers? We had this a lot in the last couple of years, wanting to waive inspection just to submit a more competitive offer. What would be your best advice for them?
Yeah. So it's very tempting to waive an inspection, but don't do it. And there are good reasons not to. I get calls from buyers who waive the inspection. They move in, they find mold or they find roof leaks or cracks in the foundation. They call me, they're upset, they're worried. Hey, Walt, is this a serious problem? But how much is it going to cost me? Fortunately, it's going to cost them a lot more than a home inspection, right? And so getting into a home with defects that you weren't able to address prior to close can be very stressful and very costly. Don't recommend it. And I say this, I tell people, listen, if you're looking for an agent, ask them how they feel about waiving home inspections. See what they have to say and work with agents like Alicia who have your best interest in mind. Get the home inspection, get the information you need, get the peace of mind you need to move forward with the purchase.
Right.
You'll never regret getting a home inspection, but you may regret not getting one.
I agree. A lot of people think they can rely on the seller disclosure, which is a legally binding document. However, unless the seller is in construction or a home inspector themselves, they're only putting on there what they know. They might not know that the crack in the wall is because of a foundation issue. And so it's not always giving you the full picture of what the house actually has going on. So yeah, I'm always going to encourage an inspection.
Yeah. Well done. We want to put our clients' interests first, Yeah, we want to get to the sale. We want people to get into that house they want, but we want to make sure it's, at the end of the day, everybody's feeling good about it. It's a win-win for everybody. And that's really important to me.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned you wouldn't even buy a car without test driving it, but I feel like a house is probably the biggest purchase you're ever going to make in your life. And you're kind of stuck with it. So the best snapshot you can get of what you're getting into, I think the better. But and there's a lot of ways that even having an inspection contingency can help you negotiate with the sellers too. So, well, it was great talking to you, Walt. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know my clients are going to appreciate the insights you had.
Yeah.
And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
All right.
Once we get through the inspection contingency period, we still have a few more hurdles before we're ready to get to that closing table. First is the lender appraisal. Unless you're paying cash for the home, your lender will order an appraisal to be done on the home. In most cases, it must appraise for the purchase price, and if it comes in low, you do still have some options, which also include the option to terminate. After we're through appraisal, next up is clear to close. We wait for that from your lender, and then we schedule the final walkthrough. I like to do the final walkthrough with my clients the day before or the day of closing. And during this time, we're checking for condition of the home and making sure it's still the same as it was at inspections. Any agreed upon appliances or other items are still there, and that the seller's personal items, trash, anything that you would not want to convey with the home are removed. Basically, this is just one more step to make sure there are no unwelcome surprises when you're getting ready to move into your home. Closing is an exciting day. I've invited Tracy Davis from Facts and Settlement Services to answer some title and closing day questions, so you know exactly what to expect and how to prepare.
Okay, so the next step is to prepare for closing. And for that, we have Tracy Davis from Facts and Settlement Services. I've worked with Tracy a lot in the past, and she does a great job. I love Faxon. Tracy, you want to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what Faxon does before we jump into the questions?
Sure. Thanks, Alicia. Thanks for having me. I've worked for Faxon for several years now, but I've been in the title industry pretty much since I got into real estate, which was back in 1990. I've been doing this on and off for many years. I also had my real estate license for a while, so that's how I know what the realtors need. And, we're just not a 9-to-5 settlement company. Alicia knows she can pretty much call me anytime, day or night, or text me, and I will answer her if I can. She doesn't need to wait till we open in the morning or close at a certain time of night. And what we do here at Faxon is once we have that sales agreement from the real estate agent, we go ahead and start the title search and issue title insurance. And then I come to closing with the buyers and the realtors to finish up buying your house. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do here at Faxon.
Let's talk about some questions that buyers might have as they go through this process. One question I get a lot is, what is title insurance, and is it required in Pennsylvania?
So yes, title insurance is very important, and a lot of buyers don't understand it because they just hear the lender say you need to have a settlement company or an attorney because you need to get title insurance, and then they don't usually explain it. A lender's title insurance policy is almost 100% required on most loans now in PA. And what title insurance is, it's a form of an indemnity that protects lenders and home buyers from financial loss sustained from defects, possible defects in the title to a property. So the lender title insurance policy is required, but we also offer owner's title insurance. And what I tell people all the time is this is probably going to be your biggest purchase you ever make in your life. Cars are, you get insurance on a car and you have to pay that insurance every year. Title insurance is a one-time fee, and it's good for as long as the lender has their loan against your property, their mortgage. But the owner's policy goes for as long as you own the property, or if you give it to one of your heirs. So if you give it to your children, that owner's policy is still good for your children as well. And like I said, it's just that one-time fee at time of closing. So is an owner's policy required in PA? No. But would most people recommend it? Even if you talk to your lender or your real estate agent or us, it's very important. We would definitely say for that one-time fee, you should go ahead and purchase it. And because you're already purchasing and you have to pay for the lender's policy at time of closing, the owner's policy is very small, extra fee, I guess I would say. And sometimes it's not an extra cost at all. Title insurance, the fee is based on the loan amount or the purchase price, whichever is higher. So if your loan amount is the same as the purchase price, you don't pay any extra for an owner's policy at all. You just automatically get it. So title insurance, it protects the lender, their lender policy, makes sure that they have a first lien mortgage against your property, that nothing else is going to come in there ahead of their mortgage. So we make sure there's no back taxes. We make sure there's no other liens. Most of your sellers probably have a mortgage on the property, and we're going to make sure that gets paid off and satisfied of record at the time of closing. There's also maybe some estates that go throughout the years. And we make sure that everything was done correctly according to somebody's will, so that nobody can come back later and try and make a claim on that property. We just make sure it's clear title to ensure that the property's free and clear from all liens, flawed records, incorrect ownership, falsified documents. And again, it's just that one fee, and it covers all of that, and it covers it for as long as you own the property. So if you go to sell the property and they find, the new buyer's title company or attorney finds something in the chain of title that they feel is a defect, it comes back on your title insurance policy, not you. You don't have to pay any legal fees to make sure that that defect gets corrected. And when I say we clear title, when we do a title search at the courthouse, it goes back 60 or more years is what is required in PA. A lot of times it's at least 100 years when we do a title search.
Buyers are under contract now, and what are some things they can do to ensure that they have a smoother closing, or what are some things they should avoid?
So once you've been approved for your loan and all that good stuff, don't quit your job. Don't go get another job that I shouldn't say you can't get another job that has a better income, but you definitely, before you take that job, want to talk to your lender, because some lenders, you can't change your job at all during the mortgage process. Others, there's some, I don't want to call them loopholes, but that if you're getting a better paying job, you might be able to do that. But definitely don't quit a job and not have a new job. No big purchases. Don't go get anything on credit. We just had a closing. I'll give you, for instance, the other day that 2 days before closing, the buyers went to Lowe's to buy new locks for the doors, so that in 2 days they had their new locks. Well, when they went to pay, the lady at the counter said, "Hey, would you like a Lowe's credit card? You'll get like a % discount." And they said yes. And they said yes. So yeah. And for like $100 of new door locks, they almost didn't close. They had to jump through a lot of hoops before we could close 2 days later, when it was a purchase that they could have cashed for. So nothing that's gonna, credit cards, don't go buy a car, anything on credit, or that they run your credit.
Don't take out a new credit card.
The other thing I'll say, and this isn't always, but I had one that closing had to be postponed. It wasn't canceled, but we had to postpone it for at least a week or two. A buyer's parents gave them money, not towards the closing. They gave her money to pay off her car. They were just trying to be nice to pay off her car, so she wasn't going to have as many payments when she bought her house. So she went and paid off her car 2 or 3 days before closing. Even though she was paying something off, it threw all kinds of red flags, and she had to wait at least an extra week or two before she could close. So lenders tell you, don't do anything. Just keep paying any payments you make monthly. Just pay those monthly payments. Whatever the lender knows about, just keep it all the same till we get to closing table.
Yeah, even if it seems like it would be a good thing, paying off your car.
I kind of was like, even myself, I was like, why is this a bad thing? Your parents are trying to help her out. But anything that changes your debt to income level ratio one way or the other, it throws red flags for lenders and their underwriters.
All right, so can you walk us through what fax and settlement service does from contract to close? I know you went over a little bit of that already, but.
Sure. So when Alicia sends me a sales agreement, we go ahead and get the title search ordered through our title insurance company, which is Fidelity. And we also order the real estate taxes right away through the tax collector as well. And then we started doing this a little while ago. We send out info sheets to the realtors, both the listing and the selling agents. It gives us some information that's good ahead of time, like instead of asking for things right before settlement, we ask them their commission, we ask them if there's private water, sewer, or if it's on site or through a company, because those are things we're gonna have to order, final water sewers, if it's through a borough or a township. Also on that information sheet is we ask for your social security numbers for both buyer and sellers. And nobody likes to give that out because we've been taught not to give out our social security numbers, but we do need those in Pennsylvania. If a buyer or a seller owes back child support, that has to be paid at time of closing and be brought current. So we have to check those things for both buyer and seller. So that's why we ask for socials. Those get destroyed after closing. We don't keep those at all. Next in the process, once the search comes back from our title insurance company, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with that. There's searchers that go to the courthouse, and then the searchers review everything that they saw at the courthouse. I know most of the searchers directly, even though it's through our title insurance company. I've come to know them and can call and ask them questions, or I can call and ask them how soon a search can get done in case it's something that needs to be rushed through. But they review it. Then they send it to our title insurance company, Fidelity. At Fidelity, those searches are then reviewed by underwriters at Fidelity. So they're reviewing it all. Then they send it to me, and then I review it all. I do have my paralegal degree through Penn State, and so then I review all title work that comes through as well. If there's anything against the title, most of it's usually easy. Mortgage payoffs, taxes, things like that. If there's an estate, we have to make sure inheritance tax has been paid or will be paid. Most things are pretty easy, but there are those times where there's things that I'm not even sure. So if I'm not sure how to correct that defect, I then go back to Fidelity. They have attorneys on staff. There are 3 that I deal with all the time. I send them an email. I ask them, how do I get this resolved? And they tell me what to do. If for some reason I can't get a hold of them, then we also have an attorney on staff at Faxon. He's in the Williamsport area. So then I send an email or I call him and he tells me how to do those things. So we have lots of attorneys on staff, and then also through our title insurance carrier that helps me make sure that all the defects are taken care of. And then we send all the title work, like your title commitment, a copy of the tax cert, a prelim closing disclosure. We send that to the lender, whoever the lender is. And then we send that off to them and wait for them to respond with what we call clear to close. And that's what every real estate agent is waiting for too. Clear to close. As soon as we get that magic statement, then I go back to Alicia and I say, okay, we're ready to schedule closing. Let's pick a date, a time, and a place that is convenient for everyone. And I like to say a place too and a time, because again, not all title companies or attorneys will do whatever time and location you want to. Some of them you have to go to them. At Faxon, we come to you. We either come to the agent's office. During COVID, we did a lot of closings at the properties because the real estate agent's offices had to be closed. Even during that time, attorneys had to be closed, but title companies were allowed to stay open. So at Faxon, we stayed open, and I closed many deals at the properties. And that was even during a time where realtors were not even allowed to come to closing. I was on the phone with a lot of them to make sure their buyers were well taken care of and that closings went okay. I also do early in the morning this week on Monday, which was, in case anybody's listening to this and you don't know when we tape this, it was the day after the Super Bowl, and I stayed up too late, but I had a 7:30 a.m. closing Monday morning, and I had to get up at 6. I had to leave the house by 6:30 to get to that closing at 7:30 a.m. I have a closing tomorrow at 8:15 a.m. Again, I have to leave by 7:15. Tonight, my latest closing's at 4, but I've had some at 5, 6, 7. We try and work around the buyer's schedule because some buyers just can't get off work depending on their work schedules, and real estate agents work all kinds of crazy hours too. So you all don't wait for 9 to 5 either. Whatever works for buyers, that's what we do. And whatever location works for a buyer. Also, we have buyers who are from out of state, and that's okay. They can close in whatever state they are in. We will send a notary closer to them, and that notary closer then overnights all the documents back to faxing for us to then get to the lenders. So we try and accommodate those type of things as well. I guess I should mention too, once we have that clear to close, whatever we need to finalize numbers is when we start ordering payoffs, making sure we have all the taxes correct, to prorate final water, sewers. Some places have recycling. We have a whole list of all the towns and townships and counties in PA that we work with. We can close anywhere in PA, any properties in PA. So we have a whole list, and we go through all that, and then we finalize numbers. We wait for the lender to send us their lender fees, and then we go back and forth with the lender till we finalize that final number. Once we have final numbers on both sides, the real estate agents will see that because we will send out a settlement statement to all the realtors in the transaction. If they have secretaries at their offices or whatever, we include everybody to show them final numbers. So everybody gets to look at final numbers to make sure it looks good for what the real estate agents know should be on the settlement statements as well. So then everybody gets to see final approval. And as soon as we get final approval, that's it. I'm going to see everyone at the closing table. So that's kind of start to finish.
Yeah. And I just want to note here that I really do appreciate how flexible you are and how I don't have extra anxiety when I'm working with you on a transaction.
That's good. Try to keep that low.
We've had, I personally have worked with other, I'm not always in control of who they choose for closing. So I've worked with other title companies. I've also worked with attorneys, and I just have to say that faxing is definitely my preferred. There's been delayed closings. There has been last minute, most recently, and you know about this, but just attending a closing with an attorney where we were to the end, and he said, "Where's the deed?" Like, that was your job. So it's definitely a load off my mind knowing my clients are taken care of when they're working with faxing. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
And
yeah, buyers are already anxious enough.
yes,
I have lots of buyers who, it's their first house, it's their first big investment. They're nervous, they're scared, a lot of emotions sitting at a closing table. I've had buyers look at me and say, I might start crying. I feel sick. All sorts of emotions. I had one lady say, I think I'm going to throw up. And I'm like, we got this. And I tease my buyers. I haven't lost a buyer yet. At one closing where the buyer didn't show up. We couldn't get a hold of them because they didn't have a cell phone. Here they were just delayed in traffic. So I can still honestly say I've not lost a buyer yet. So that's good.
Yes, and you are always great at closing to keep things moving along, but fun for the buyers too. So I do appreciate that too. So speaking of closing, what should buyers expect, and maybe more importantly, what should they make sure they bring?
Yeah, so what to expect, I tell people get ready to sign, if depending on who your lender is, you're going to sign a lot of documents. And even some of the lenders that don't have many documents, to a buyer, it still seems like a lot because they've never sat down and had to just sign their name over and over and over. And we also, at the same time, we're trying to explain the documents. We try and explain it very easily. You do get copies of all your documents when you leave. So if you want to go home and read it all word for word, I tell buyers they're never going to be that bored. But I've had a few buyers say, no, I'm weird like that. I probably will go home and just read everything. I'm like, good for you. Other than that, we try and keep it light and fun. It's supposed to be a good experience at this point to just getting those keys to your first house. So really the only thing you have to bring along is a driver's license. Now, there are some lenders who want me to get a second form of ID. It's very few and far between, but if it's a newer lender and I'm not sure, that you probably should just bring 2 forms of ID just so you're safe. But the first thing is always the driver's license. Second form of ID doesn't have to have your picture on it, so it can be a social security card, an insurance card. Some people bring their permit to carry card. If you work for the government, you know, like a government ID type of card. Anything like that can be a second form of ID. Again, most times we don't need it. Passport are always a second form of ID. But again, we usually don't need it, but if we don't know for sure, better to have 2 than not.
Right.
And then the only other thing they're gonna need is if you owe money at closing, which your real estate agent usually will tell you the amount. Sometimes the lenders will call you and go over your final amount. And last but not least, usually someone from Faxon tries to call as well to the buyer to let them know final number of what they need to bring to closing. If it's under $1,000, it can be a personal check, but anything over 1,000 has to be a certified or cashier's check, or they can also do a wire if their bank's further away.
And they can't just bring a briefcase of cash, correct?
No cash, please, no cash. I cannot accept cash.
Well, thank you, Tracy. I think this will be very helpful for people who are just trying to prepare themselves for the buying process. So I appreciate your time and all the great information you provided.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And that's a wrap. I hope you were able to take some notes and get a better understanding of the home buying process throughout this webinar. As always, if you have any questions after watching, I'm available by text, call, or email, whatever's more convenient for you. This webinar is just one of my free homebuyer resources, so if you're interested in accessing the others, just text house hunting to my cell phone with your email address and I will send you the links. I hope your home buying process is smooth, enjoyable, and everything you dreamed it would be. Happy house hunting!